Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 76 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today we're going to be speaking with F.A. Ukala, and the topic we're discussing is legal mistakes you should avoid as you pursue entrepreneurship. And I thought as part of our Driver's Ed series that we definitely needed to have an episode on legal stuff, just because it's something that we as entrepreneurs don't often talk about. So unless you're a lawyer or unless you come from that background, you may not even be thinking about the legal side of your business. And as creators and lifestyle entrepreneurs, we may want to focus on other things in our business instead of this stuff. So FA is going to talk about the key things that you as an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur should be thinking about. Some of those topics include the number one legal mistake many entrepreneurs make, when to trademark and protect your brand, how to avoid brand infringement, why you need to be diligent with your contracts and your partnerships, legal tips for working with influencers and marketing your business, and the importance of ethics when it comes to the legal side of your business. So this episode is filled with a lot of great tips that I know you will really benefit from. And to give you a little bit of background about FA, she's a vice president of legal and compliance at Karamo Capital Management, which is an investment management firm where she manages the firm's legal initiatives. She also currently serves as a vice president of the Association of Black Women Attorneys in New York. And as part of our Driver's Ed series, I want to also remind you guys that you can get our free resources. So things that we discussed in a lot of the previous episodes, like we had an episode on how to get press for your brand, and we also had the episode on how to overcome fear of failure. We have episode worksheets that are available for free for you to download, and you can get those at dreamsanddrive.com/free. That's dreamsanddrive.com/free. And we also have a networking contact management template that you can pick up there as well. I really hope that you guys enjoy listening to this one. And remember, if you haven't already, make sure to follow us on social at Dreams and Drive. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Find us, follow us, use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when you're listening. I love to get in there and engage with you all, but I can't do it if you're not tweeting or you're not sharing the show. So definitely make sure to use the hashtag and follow us on social. This episode is going to be really, really valuable. So let me know what you think. Send me an email anytime. Raina at dreamsanddrive.com. All right, so let's get into the episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hi, FA. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Dreams and Drive. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, Raina. It's a pleasure being here, and I'm so excited to be on the show.
I know. We connected a while back, and we've just stayed in contact since. And I feel like, it's been so great seeing your work evolve, and you always pitching in on stuff that I'm doing with Dreams and Drive. So this had to happen, and I'm happy that it is happening.
No. I was just trying to say I'm really excited. I know it sort of happened in a funny way, but it's been great knowing you.
So one of the first things that I love to ask all our guests is what inspired you as a child? So if I had to say who was FA, the 8-year-old, the 9-year-old, how would you describe her?
The 8-year-old was, I would say, I was very, very observant. And I guess being the first in the family also, it was almost like, you had to carry your siblings along even at a tender age. So I was very observant of my parents and trying to learn, how to be able to act like, the first child of the family, so to say. And while I watched them, I really got inspired by what they do for different reasons. My dad for the profession, my mom for just how she was able to juggle multiple things and still keep the family together.
So when you were a child, did you remember what your dream was? When I was younger, I used to tell my mom that I wanted to be a cashier. She was like, what? But when you were younger, what was the thing that you saw yourself being when you were an adult?
I would count myself as one of those lucky ones. This may sound very cliche, but I always wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
So as a kid, unfortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure, if it's fortunately or unfortunately, but my dad was a lawyer, and I looked up to him. I was always excited by like hearing him talk about the cases he handled, and I just thought that was a profession to be in.
Mm-hmm. So you ended up going to college and then going to law school?
Yes. Lucky enough, I went to college, and in fact, going to college, I knew what I wanted to do. Going into college, it was all about law, so I would actually take classes that I thought would prepare me for law school, but no one really told me then that, basically in college you could take whatever classes you wanted to take. So I would take any class that had, an inkling to law, just to be able to prepare myself for law school.
Do you regret not diversifying your college coursework now that you know that it didn't really matter as much as you thought it did?
I wouldn't say I regret it, because I went to an undergrad that had a very, very strong econ faculty. Mm-hmm. So that was something I know I definitely explored, and I'm glad I explored it. So I actually took some econ law classes, which I believe like helped me, with what I do today. But besides that, I think that if I had to go back again, maybe I would have been an English major.
Oh, wow. Why English?
Because I feel that as a lawyer, you need very, very, very strong writing skills. And I found that while, of course, during law school, I worked on that. I was on one of the journals at my law school, but I did find that having very strong writing skills were critical to being a lawyer. So I felt like maybe in college I should have just focused more on building that skill set as opposed to worrying so much about the law.
So, after law school, what was your first taste of practicing law like?
My taste of practicing law was actually during law school. I mean, during undergrad, actually. Okay. Yeah, so during undergrad, I was part of this fellowship called the Metcalf Fellows, which allowed me to have an internship at the Public Defender Service in D.C., mm-hmm. And that was actually my first experience. So I flew from Chicago, went to DC. The whole summer I was there in the juvenile department as well as the felony department. And my whole experience that summer was criminal law, defending the indigenous people, helping lawyers defend the indigenous people. My tag during that summer was purely investigative work. So I would go out to interview if there was a shooting, if there was, a felony case or whatever the case may be. I would meet with witnesses. I would meet with our clients to talk and try to reconstruct the story. So that was actually my first experience with the law. After law school, my first experience was actually in practicing employment law. Okay. At a law firm, plaintiff sides, which was a lot of fun. But at the same time, I sort of got pulled to the finance law sector, which is what I practice in now, which combine my two passions, which is finance and law.
Ooh, okay. I have to write that down. Finance and law, because we have to make sure we ask you some of those questions. So, dream drivers listening in, and FA, you know that our dream drivers are creative and lifestyle entrepreneurs, people who may have started businesses, people who want to start businesses and need that extra push. We're going to talk to you today using your advice in law, on how we can really make sure that we are structuring our businesses the right way. So what do you think is the number one mistake that many, many people make on the legal side when it comes to operating and owning a business?
Not registering their business.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So let's say I would use an example. If I went out today and decided to start a business, I would find that, in terms of the mistakes, I would see like someone, without really having the background in law would just go out and say, hey, I want to sell candies. And they will probably start selling candies out of their home and shipping it to different states and whatnot. And it's going to, from address would be, their personal address, and to would be to whoever the client is, right? They haven't gone through the registration process. They haven't gone to their state department to figure out what forms do I need to fill to get my business formally registered. Now, if you want to be a sole proprietor, okay, meaning that if you want to run the business as part of your, in quote, personal liability, and I would explain what that means, then fine, that is one thing. However, the danger of not registering your business is that if, for example, you get sued, right, or something catastrophic happens, happens to you, you would then be personally liable for whatever the damages are. And by damages is whatever the other person is asking from you in court, right? Now, if you went through the process and let's say you registered it as an LLC, you limit your liability. So let's say X comes and say, hey, I'm going to sue Raina. Raina sue Raina because you have a company that is registered. They will sue Dreams in Drive, right? And that would, to an extent, minimize Raina's possible exposure to the lawsuit. So that means that no one would expect you to go sell your personal car to pay for the debts of the business. Rather, they would expect Dreams in Drive. So Dreams in Drive would be a separate entity liable from Raina. Unless, of course, there are complex situations whereby they would have to pierce through the corporate veil, meaning that they may have to now go above to find the owner. But that's really in complex cases. So generally, you want to ensure that you have done all that is needed to register your business as a separate entity.
So should you be registering your business before you even make any money? Because let's say someone's like, oh, I want to start a business, but I'm not even sure if it's going to be profitable. Maybe I'll just do all that stuff once I find out or validate the idea. What would you respond to that person?
My response to that person is, if you want a sole proprietorship, right? And a sole proprietorship is when you say, okay, fine, I am fine. Maybe you have billions of dollars and I'm fine with people suing me personally, right? Then fine, go ahead. But if you do not want to be a sole proprietor, if you want your business liability to be separate from your individual liability, then I definitely would encourage you that as soon as you feel that you're ready to kick off, as soon as you're ready to put anything in commerce, I would highly encourage that before you start that process, you should register. So that means that you may have had your vendors in line, you may have had your, everything ready to click, open website for commerce. But if at that point, the only thing at that point, the only thing that is outstanding is probably your registration. I would advise that you do the registration even before you open it up.
Okay, that's great advice. And I think that's something that a lot of us often overlook because especially now, it seems like becoming an entrepreneur is so easy, right? All you have to do is just start an Instagram page and say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, buy my stuff. But there's so many things on the legal side that we aren't really looking into. So that is definitely great. So if you want to register your business, what would be the next step then? Would you hire a lawyer? Would you use one of those online systems, or would you just kind of go directly to the state and do it yourself? What would you recommend?
You can always, with registering a business, it's easy to sort of read through what the rules are and, go into your state office or even do it online and register it. If you feel that, you would actually prefer someone with experience. The thing is that when you use a lawyer, you do have someone who has years and years of experience, right? That can easily help you. So that's definitely an option. Now, in regards to in regards to the different online platforms that help, I know of those. I personally haven't used those, and I cannot speak as to, the level of, diligence that is put into that registration process on the individual's behalf. But of course, entrepreneurs could explore that. And you made a great point when you talked about Instagram, right? You said, I can go on Instagram and put my product there, right? And then sell it to people. Here's the problem with that, right? Let's say you go on Instagram and you put a bottle of shampoo and you said, okay, I'm now selling shampoos that I made in my kitchen, right? I'm going to sell them. You start selling them. Someone who, picks up your product, maybe you haven't labeled it correctly, right? And they have an allergy, uses this product, right? And for some reason, they break in hives, they're hospitalized, something, they have this huge medical bill. Guess who they're going to come after? You. Right?
Yes.
Let's say, Raina, hey, you sold this product to me. You didn't tell me that it was made from pine nuts, and I'm allergic to pine nuts, right? Now,
sorry, my bad.
Exactly, but you cannot just say, hey, my bad. At that point, it's a lawsuit, right? And that person is probably going to sue you for their medical bills, whatever it is they can do. And even if you don't have the money, hey, guess what? You have a big flat screen TV, right? Or you have a car, or you have some nice shoes or something that you can you can sell to try to raise the funds that they need to be able to be made whole. So again, that is why you have to be very careful. Entrepreneurs in general have to be very careful when they think about what they're putting in commerce.
And would you say that's the same, especially for someone who has a service-based business? So let's say you're somebody who is a copywriter, or you're a writer or something like that. Do you still need to also try to establish a separate business entity?
Yes, I would definitely recommend that. If, for example, I was a doctor and I say, hey, I will, consult with patients, and, I would take phone calls and hear what your ailments are and somehow prescribe medication, I would actually highly, or even a lawyer, I would highly encourage, those service professionals to register business as well. Because again, while maybe in the case of a lawyer, medical malpractice suit may not arise, but a legal malpractice suit may arise, right?
Ooh.
So there is always something that could arise. So again, it's highly recommended that even the service, the entrepreneurs that specialize in, offering services also take the required step to get their business registered.
So one thing that I often see a lot is, people are copywriting their businesses as well, or register. I don't know what it's called, trademarking, registering it. When is that important? Or should that be done when you're also registering your business?
Yeah, so that's actually a great point, because when you also asked about, what legal mistakes I see many entrepreneurs make, that was actually a point that I also wanted to raise, which was they fail to protect their brand, right? And what do I mean by that? It's like Dreams and Drive, for example. It's a catchy phrase. It makes sense. You've been doing all this work that people, when they think of Dreams and Drive, they think of Raina, right? Now, I would highly encourage that. If you cannot do it, maybe because of how it costs hundreds of dollars. If you're unable to register your business with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, if you're in the United States, different countries have their own patent registration offices. If you couldn't do it right before you get into commerce, you should probably do it within a few months of starting. What that does is that it protects that brand. So let's say someone has been observing Dreams and Drive, and I'm sorry if I keep using Dreams and Drive. I think it's easy to relate. Dreams and Drive, maybe, someone has been observing Dreams and Drive, building its platform, is gaining traction, right? And you're like, oh my God, I like what she's doing. It makes sense. And all of a sudden they run to the trademark office to register that name before you do, right?
Oh, no.
At the point, it happens. It's almost like, I don't know if you've heard of when people actually sit on websites So they take famous people's name or names that are catchy, buy the domain and sit on it. They're not using it for anything. So that when that person whose maybe name matches that website needs it, they sell it to the person at a higher price. So anyways, back to the trademark. So you don't want someone else to run to the, relevant trademark registration office before you registering your name and prohibiting you from using it, right? Because at that point, if you've been using Dreams and Drive and then this other company starts using Dreams and Drive and they've put a little R, how do you know a trademark is registered? You see the little R with a circle around it. They put a little R with a circle around it Now, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to still utilize that name unless maybe it's used in you're using it to provide cat food or something, right? There are different tests to it, but it's going to be very difficult. And as a result of that, that would actually lead to like a lot of brand confusion for people. Let's say someone goes to Google Dreams and Drive, they may not be sure which is the right one. You're building a brand name that you have a competitor that has exactly the same brand name. It gets very challenging. So I definitely always recommend, register your brand prior to commencing, or if that is not possible for some reason, do it within a few months after.
And you know what? I will link to the show notes. There is a way for you to check online to see if someone has already trademarked that name.
That is part. That is actually part of the process. So once you go to a lawyer or once you go to whoever is helping you out to register, the first thing you want to do is to search. In fact, before you even pick a business name, I would recommend that you go search. Is someone else using this business name? Because you don't want to use exactly the same business name as someone is, right? Is someone using this business name? Is it available? Is there a website that has already taken up this business name, right? Who are the competitors if they are similar business name? You just want to know those things. And then, of course, has it been registered? So I think that, picking a name is one thing, but just before you start putting things out there, check to make sure that that website is available, no one else is using it, and just making sure it's clean and it's something that you'll be happy to move forward with. And immediately you find that those are available, I would highly advise you take this first move, because you don't want to start selling something on Instagram. Someone notices it, buys that domain, uses that name to get a domain name, sits on it, so that you come back to have to pay them $2,000 to utilize the name that you created.
Yeah, that is. I've had people who've had to pay out to get their domain name. So it is very true. And you can also do that. This is totally unrelated to legal stuff. But even with your name, if you have a unique name, make sure you just buy that URL so that nobody else can take it. So I feel like that's going to be the future. Like, I feel like when babies are born, they're going to have to, that's going to be part of getting your birth certificate. It's like getting your URL too.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I highly encourage that. And also with, a business that I helped out with, that was actually one of the first things once they figured out what the name was going to be, because it was a unique name. In fact, during the process, once they figured out it was a unique name, they're like, oh, pause, don't even put it in Google. Let's go check, right? And once they checked, that was the first thing they did. They purchased it. They purchased the .com. They purchased the .net. Just to make sure that, someone else doesn't go purchase, the .net just to confuse people.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good tip. So do you have any other legal mistakes that you see a lot of entrepreneurs making?
Yeah. So in addition to protecting their own brand, they have to also ensure that they're not infringing on others' brands. What do I mean by that? If you want to, let's say you want to start up a lotion company, or you want to start your own brand of lotion, don't go call it Jergens, right?
Why not? Nobody has that name.
Jergens is already out there.
I know. I was joking.
Jergens is out there. So you go have yours as Jergens and put out there. Guess what? whoever the parent company is gonna come after you right after you've invested all your money into it, right? And they're gonna sue you, and you're gonna have to pay out of your nose for that. So, and all I don't. And this person does something similar to what I do. Actually, and you look at it like, oh my God, actually it's exactly the same thing. I'll just copy their text and paste on my website, right? Don't do that, because just as you wouldn't want someone to, sort of copy your work, copy your creation, or lay claims on your intellectual property, you shouldn't do that to others, because the moment you do it, you're gonna, if that company has enough resources to search and to keep looking to see who are its infringers, is definitely going to sue you.
That's some great tips. And I feel like people sometimes, especially in the beginning, they want to just take the easy way out. But knowing if you go that route, you will. It's never going to be easier to get yourself out of that mess.
No. And they may not come for you in the beginning. Because they might not even find out. It could be at year 5 when you're making billions of dollars. They're going to see your company and may see you personally. So again, you just have to be careful.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned is, figuring out what the right type of business structure is. So you mentioned whether you want to operate as a sole proprietor or having an LLC, and I know that there's even other types of business structures that you could form. How do you know which one is the right one for you, and what should you do once you find out what you want to proceed with?
Yeah, and I always tell people to never register a company as, maybe an LLC or corporation because your friend has done the same and that friend is so successful, right? Never do that. You have to take into consideration your personal needs and your business needs, right? You have to take into consideration the tax implications. That's actually one of the bigger driver of how people want to register their company. Tax implications and liability. For example, as I said earlier, for sole proprietorship, if I'm happy to be personally liable for the business, then of course, I may be happy to run as a sole proprietorship, right? If I am not happy to do that, because maybe the kind of goods I'm putting out in commerce are the kind of goods that if someone sued me, based on some sort of breach, they could really wipe me away, literally, in terms of financially, then maybe I want to do an LLC. So those are things you have to think about, the liability. The tax portion is also very integral, because the way you register your business also dictates how you're taxed. Like, is it a pass-through taxation? Is it taxation that, isn't passed through? Those are things, and that is where you actually may want to just also sit with a tax consultant to talk about, because they are the experts that will be able to tell you what the tax implications of the different registration types are. Now, regardless of all that, one of the popular that we have observed is actually the LLC. I think the LLC, because of its liability, again, you're not that exposed personally. At that, the business is exposed, but not the individual behind the business. And I think it also has a better, in terms of taxation, it has some laxity, but I can't really talk more on tax. I'm not a tax attorney, and it's not my forte at all. So I would highly encourage people to talk to their tax consultants about the tax implication of the corporation, of the LLC, of the sole proprietorship method.
And you know what? One thing that I'm hearing is this: it's just really important before you launch whatever you want to do is do the research and work with professionals who know what they're doing. It's worth it to take the time to really do that planning in the beginning, because as we've been talking about this whole entire podcast, if things go wrong, you're going to wish that you had just taken that extra week to meet with people, or, saved up that $150 to have a consultation with a lawyer. You know what I mean? So it's so important to do the research there.
Yeah, very, very correct. Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you then, FA, is creative and lifestyle entrepreneurs, is there something specifically that you think we should know legally that can help us? So I feel like, whether you're in the music realm or whether you're creating, you're creating things and you're selling it, whether it be your service or product, is there something that this segment often does wrong that we really need to be aware of?
Your contracts.
Ooh, okay, let's talk contracts.
Yeah, your relationships. So especially when you're in the creative field, you're working with a lot of creatives, right? Most of your relationships are going to be, most of whatever you offer will be based on an agreement with someone, right? Mm-hmm. Handshake deals, never the way to go, right? Because I could sit here and say, hey, Raina, let's do this. And you're like, yay, great. But at the point of execution, we may realize that our minds never met. And when I talk of meeting of the minds, I mean, we thought we agreed on something, but the deeper we delved into execution, we realized that our perception of the agreement was different. Right? So maybe I said, hey, let's meet at Penn Station. And you're like, great, let's meet at Penn Station. I meant Penn Station, New York. You meant Penn Station, New Jersey. So those are, you have to make sure that, okay, once you have agreed to enter into any form of partnership, you put those in writing. When you put those in writing, that actually forces you to hash out the detail. So let's say in the contract I put Penn Station, that may force you to say Penn Station located at, right? And at that point, it sort of clears the ambiguity that you may have had there. So I would really generally encourage creatives. I know sometimes, you're just busy trying to create and that may not be on the top of the list of things to do, but really, really try to get your contract. And even when you're giving contract, read every fine line. If you don't understand it, ask. There is no shame in asking, I don't understand what this means, right? Because I've also found that creatives who sign to a contract that they barely read, and when it comes to a point of dispute, they see a clause and they're like, yeah, I signed it. I didn't really understand what it meant, but I just thought it was okay, right? You have to understand that when people present a contract to you, most of the time, they present that contract in mind of with a view of trying to also protect their own brand, right? So your purpose should also make sure that should be that whatever you want to protect as well is also included in that contract. So the contract is never, this unchangeable piece of document. It's a living document. You're present a contract, you should negotiate it. You're present a contract, you should ask questions about it. You should try to insert clauses that you feel will protect you as well, so that at the end of the day, that contract will truly reflect what the two parties wanted.
Definitely. And I think some people, especially creatives, they may think that's going to delay the process, right? Oh, the contract process is going to take too long. I'll just sign it, or we don't need one. No, don't do that, because as we said before, the problems that could arise if there are contract issues post signing it and you didn't review it well are not worth it. So make sure to take the time, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I found that especially in the day of, I've observed that given the day and age, we have a lot of creatives working on YouTubes and on Instagram, on all the social networks, or we have a lot of brands engaging social network influencers, right? Contracts actually plays a huge role there. With a brand I worked with, we have experienced a point where products were sent for review without a contract being signed, right? And for one reason or the other, the product basically, the individuals tracked it to the location, but upon receipt, no word.
Oh, wow.
So again, right? it's very important to get the things in writing, because the idea was that, okay, you get the product, you review it within X number of days, right? You let us know who, also you're going to talk about who will own the license to that content that is created, so that that person doesn't come after you 10 years from now or 2 years from now and say, hey, you use my image and liking without my consent, right? You want to avoid that. So you have the contract to show for it. So again, the contracts are also very important when engaging in the social media realm as well.
And I think, especially for people just starting out, it also will help you establish the processes that you're going to have in business moving on, because as your business grows, there's going to be so many multiple layers. So if you practice that process of every person you speak to or every person you do business with, you have that contract process laid out, it's just going to lay the foundation of, I think in my own experiences, people will take you more seriously when they know that, hey, this business deal is not finished until we have this in writing. So that's just a little tip for the newbie dream drivers listening in. It also helps people understand that they have to take you seriously. I've seen it within my own life,
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your passion. So law isn't the only thing that you are interested in. Maybe you can tell our dream drivers some of the other another area that you are interested in, and how you've helped the management team at Etoile Blue launch the business.
Yeah, so you're right. Law is not my only passion. But yeah, so I've worked with the management of Etoile Blue. Etoile Blue focuses on providing hair extension, eyelash extensions, and it has a lot that the management is working on that would be revealed at some point. I've worked closely with them to build that brand, and part of and I think it brings an interesting perspective to the table, because I talk about the legal side, and I guess prior to that I would talk to entrepreneurs a lot about, hey, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. But when you sort of mixing that with running, helping management run its business, it sort of put things into a lot of contexts, because you sort of see, the practicality of certain things and what is not practical. So at Etoile Blue, I have been involved with them basically because of my passion for everything beauty. So we've worked from, I would say, for the past 6 months, trying to get the business up and running, trying to get marketing going, which has been a bit challenging, but it's been a very interesting learning process.
So what do you think, how do you think, maybe you can give us an example of how your legal experience has really helped, lay the foundation for the brand, or ways that you've been able to really, be an expert in some part of the business?
Yeah, I think that my legal expertise has helped with Etoile Blue, and it's spelled Etoile Blue, Blue. I think that my legal experience has helped a lot, because of course when from the inception I was able to say, hey, before the products were even put into comments, I was like, look, you need to have this thing registered, right? Trademark registration was done before the business launched. The websites were secure. The name search, before the name was even finalized, of course, the name search was done to find out, for one, is it unique enough, right? Because I think that the mistake most brands do is to name their brands very similar to like 10 different things that are out there, because then people start mixing it up. Like I've seen like a company that has named its company very similar to 2 other companies, and it gets confusing, right? So trademark registration was done, website registration was done before, and also once this company started engaging influencers, that was actually part of the deal. It's like, okay, you have the prior conversations, and it gets to the point that the parties are ready for contracts, and you say, hey, all of this that we've agreed has to be put in writing, right? And actually, the brand had experienced the point where someone said, with a lot of following, was like, "Oh no, I don't do contracts," and the brand had to back away.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Because, I think it's difficult for you to say, as a brand, you want to work with a professional that doesn't, in quote, do contracts, right? It gets very, very challenging. So I think that my expertise has helped the brand to really think about these critical legal questions earlier earlier than later, and also trying to protect itself, like even before the brand, if the brand was contemplating putting that would have applied on the skin. And one of the questions was like, has this gone through rigorous testing to make sure that someone doesn't put it on their skin and then they're breaking hives, right? That is a lawsuit. But I think that without that legal experience, I probably, wouldn't have helped them brainstorm through, potential issues before it happens.
So what are some of the current challenges that the brand is working through? And, maybe just as being part and seeing the team really launch the brand, what can you really relate to when it comes to getting word out about a business? Like, what are some of the challenges you guys are facing?
I think that it's interesting because, of course, I was looking at the brand from inception from a legal lens, but as the brand continued to grow little by little, I really started trying to observe it from a business lens, which is very, very different from a legal lens. From the business lens, I think that because, my thought process in the beginning when I was trying to work with a brand was mostly legal, I failed to talk to the management about, okay, what is your marketing strategy, right? It was almost like, okay, I'm going to help you with the legal. I'll do this, I'll do that. But as I observed, they started struggling a lot with marketing. You find a great product. No one is going to buy your product if they don't know you exist, right? So the brand had to sort of, switch gears a little bit to start thinking about how to market. And even during marketing, as I just spoke about, there are a lot of legal challenges associated with that as well. For example, you have to be careful when you're giving your product to someone to review, right? Let's say the person reviews it and, makes a comment about a competing brand that could hurt the competing brand sales, right? You actually don't want that, as associated with your company, because guess what? The person has acted, said whatever they said, individually, and not saying the brand said that. However, depending on how it's stated, the competing brand may actually come after that individual and your company, right? So those are things like you have to be careful about, like what kind of remarks I made. Are the remarks substantiated? If you're making facts, make sure you can back it. Right. So again, this is where the legal comes in. So you cannot go out and say, oh my God, like this product would cure X, Y, and Z. Whereas you do not have evidence to show that it will. You're just doing it to attract people to buy your product. Well, guess what? The Federal Trade Commission is watching you, right? At a point, they're going to knock on your door and say, hey, what's going on? You've made these claims on certain products, do you have, evidence to? And once you've done, that is a huge lawsuit. So again, while, every brand struggles with marketing at a point in time, except the marketing experts in the house, right? And there are not a lot of those that exist these days, but I've noticed from the brand, like it's a constant challenge trying to figure out creative ways to get marketing done. And even while you're doing it, you have to also look at it from a legal lens to make sure that whatever this brand is doing to market does not violate rules and regulations regarding marketing.
You brought up so much stuff that I think is so relevant. The thing about, let's say you're giving your product to review and the reviewer then mentions another company. That's something that you probably could have put in a contract, right? You could have made sure to outline that in a contract. So that goes back to making sure that your contracts are very thorough. And I also I think it's just something that people aren't thinking about, and it goes back to our first, what we said earlier in the conversation was everyone thinks it's so easy. They think that the whole process is just launching a site and wow, now I'm an entrepreneur. No, take the time to really understand what it really means to be in business, because you don't want to go out of business.
Exactly. You may go out of business faster than you got into business.
So is there anything else that you think our dream drivers need to know when it comes to having a legally sound business or really launching and being successful in the legal realm?
Yeah, I think everything comes down to like making sure you're doing things ethically. I think even when I talked about marketing, the underlying fact is ethical, because if you're an ethical business person, you probably will not be going out and making unsubstantiated statements about what your product does, right? So I think that definitely that's one of the big deals. You should definitely, as I said, get everything in writing. You should read your contracts. You should close deals with a contract. You should also make sure that if there are local laws, federal laws that your business needs to apply to, make sure you're applying to make sure you're complying with those laws. If you need a business permit for the kind of business you do not go start your business without obtaining that permit. Oh, and one big thing. If you believe that you don't want a sole proprietorship, and the kind of structure that you have decided to do requires you to register with the tax authorities, get your EIN number.
Ooh, yes, that's something I was going to ask you about. So definitely make sure you have your EIN, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so let's go into our lightning round, FA. So at this point of our conversation, I'm gonna give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And remember that this is going to stick with our whole dreams and drive metaphor. Okay.
Okay.
The first word is park.
Stagnant.
Reverse.
Crumble.
Neutral.
Safe.
Drive.
Car.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So maybe you can tell us 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
I think you definitely need perseverance, creativity, and you have to have the drive.
So true, so true. And how do you think, we've talked about you from when you were younger, how you always knew you wanted to be a lawyer, and then developing your law career, and now helping the management team over at Etoile. How have you really changed in your own dream driving journey, or what have you really learned about yourself, FA?
I think I have learned that I have some strong perseverance skills. I believe for me, the road to get into law school wasn't the most straightforward. And even after that, finding something I love to do, combining business and law wasn't something that I entirely envisioned. I think basically, the little story behind that is prior to becoming a business lawyer, I was actually a litigator.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is completely different, right? From being a business lawyer in-house at a firm. So I think that, patience and perseverance really allowed me to get where I am today.
So what motivates you when you feel like giving up? Because I can only imagine the law, the life of a lawyer must be stressful at times, and, dealing with different clients. Like, what keeps you going on those days when you're like, I just want to stay home today. I don't want to go to work.
The light at the end of the tunnel. It may sound cliche, but basically I guess I'm generally good at having a vision of what I want out of, life, or what I want out of an experience. So constantly thinking about the end goal, right, keeps me moving. It helps me to realize, okay, maybe I'm on step 1 of 100, but if I take just this other step, right, I'll be at step 2 out of 100, and with each step I take, I really would get closer to that dream.
Thank you so much. I actually have a bonus question for you.
Sure.
As a lawyer, what's the best investment that you've ever made in yourself? Because I feel like, it's such specialized, you have to have specialized knowledge. Is there something that you've really done to make sure that you're constantly, in line with the times?
I think as a lawyer, it's just continuously seeking to get educated on things you're not yet educated on.
Okay.
I think that's the big thing. And if I may add just a little bit to that, in terms of, practical. So it's like I'm always reading about things. I'm always trying to understand complex things in other fields that I really should have no business understanding, but I feel like it sort of adds color to my practice. Meaning that if I got a deal, on maybe environmental, let's say investing in an environmental company, I would know a little bit about it because I have read articles and maybe related to that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just constantly, pushing myself. And I guess that has led me to the fact that I will be starting business school in the fall.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where will you be attending? Do you know yet?
Columbia.
Okay, New York City in the house.
Yep.
Well, we'll have to have you back on the show to share your business lessons.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
Thank you, F.A. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I know our dream drivers have enjoyed talking to you as well. Can you let them know how they can connect with you if they have other questions or if they want to learn more about Etoile Blue?
Sure. If they want to connect with me, I would have to LinkedIn.
Okay, yeah.
I am on LinkedIn, and it is EFE, and last name is Ukala. I check LinkedIn often, so definitely that's a place to go. For Etoile Blue, their website is www.etoileblue.com or PR@etoileblue.com.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 76 with F.A. I hope that you enjoyed hearing her share her dream driving story as well as her keys to success. And I also hope that you just enjoyed learning about some of the legal things that you should be considering as you pursue entrepreneurship. As I said, it's very important when you are setting up your business that you're also thinking about having the right structures in place and having a strong legal foundation. The worst thing you can do is, have a business up and running and then a few weeks later get a cease and desist from someone and said, oh, you stole my name, or, have the government run you down because you haven't registered your business the correct way. So hopefully this episode had you really thinking about things that you need to do in your business in order to make sure you have a strong legal foundation. And remember, if you need help, seek out professional advice. I would recommend that you don't just go by Google if you aren't 100% how things really work. Take the time to invest in a professional who can help you with all of your legal needs. As always, please make sure to subscribe to our Dreams and Drive channel wherever you're listening, whether it be iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you are notified every week when we have a new episode released. I also encourage you to follow us on social at Dreams and Drive, and you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when you're listening in as well and sharing and engaging online. I also want to say thank you to everyone who has filled out the Dreams and Drive listener survey. It has been so fun and so valuable and so useful going in and seeing all of your responses. So if you haven't already, you can fill it out by going to dreamsanddrive.com/survey. That's dreamsanddrive.com/survey. I appreciate you guys all so much. Also, if you want our show notes, just go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 76. You can explore our resources there and learn a little bit more about F.A. as well. All right, I also encourage you to go check out episode 75. 74 and 73, those are also the episodes in our Driver's Ed series. We learned how to get press for our business, how to create community, and also how to network your way to success. So go check out all of those episodes. You will not be disappointed by all the resources and information that our guests share. All right, keep dreaming, keep driving. Thank you so much for being part of the Dreams and Drive family. I appreciate you all, and we'll chat again in episode 77. We're going to be speaking with Melody McCloskey of Style Seat. Talk to you soon.